Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll seat Representative Schuett for Representative Hatch and Representative Tucker for Representative Lang. Need a motion on the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by McGuire, second by Schmidt. Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have any requests to postpone? Okay. And a motion for the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by McGuire, second by Schmidt. Any requests to remove anything from the consent calendar? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chair? Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to postpone item 9.
Okay, motion by McGuire to postpone item 9.
Second.
And would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to postpone this because the the objection response is totally inadequate, and I would think the department needs another couple of weeks to come up with something that'll meet the needs.
And they should also probably be in attendance. So all those in favor of postponement?
Aye.
Any objections? Board of Pharmacy.
Mr. Chairman, who was the second on that motion?
Schmidt. Oh, bad legs. They
This
didn't
is
identify.
2021-122. There is a conditional approval request. The only issue is on page 5. It's a note to Gelcar. So OPLC is responsible for promulgating rules to establish fees, which they have done so in PLC 1000. So the fee mentioned on the conditional approval request here for the Board of Pharmacy on page 5 of the conditional approval request references that PLC 1000, and the fee set in PLC 1002.23 for the mail order pharmacies is set at $2,000. It was established in an emergency rule and then updated in an interim rule, but the interim rule expires on March 21st. And as of now, the OPLC has not, or we have not received a filing from OPLC for a regular rule for this PLC 1000. And so the committee may have questions about the expiration of this fee.
Good morning, Tina Kelly from the Office of Professional Licensure and Certification. And it is my understanding that OPLC will be filing for a permanent rule on the 22nd.
That would be after the expiration date.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Lindsay Corney, Executive Director, Office of Professional Licensure and Certification. We have had these rules, the PLC 1002s, drafted since I believe September, and our intent was to file them in November with the idea that we would have anticipated legislative changes. Unfortunately, when we sought the consultation and collaboration with the various licensing boards, we received significant pushback from a handful, which resulted in a significant delay in us filing rules, and ultimately we decided to pare down those rules and only file the rules that are absolutely necessary. We recognize that this will result in a a time period in which we will not have a rule in place and obviously are not able to charge people. But unfortunately, that was the result of having to collaborate with 54 different sets of boards with different ideas as to fees.
Comments?
No more comments from me.
Okay. Questions from the committee?
Yeah, I'm just curious how you plan to deal with the rush of license applications you'll be receiving next week.
In terms of the fees, so right now we don't have fees in place for, I think it was veterinarians, and there may be one other that we don't have fees in place. So because of this issue that has been ongoing for many years as to disputes as to who has authority to file fees regarding, or rules regarding fees, and what the fee should be, how the fee should be allocated. And so right now we're just processing the applications without charging a fee, which is obviously concerning because that means that certain boards are not meeting their costs. The way we've sought to remedy this was through SB 313, which was intended to do a couple of things, clarify that OPLC has the fee setting authority, which is the legislation I think that we've discussed previously with this committee. Unfortunately, again, we received some significant pushback from several of the associations and boards, and so ultimately that bill has been amended by the committee, I think as of last week, Senate Ways and Means, to essentially create a study committee to study the issue of fees and how fees should be, or costs should be allocated. So there is going to be another delay. Unfortunately, that will mean that several of our licensing boards or individuals within our licensing boards are continuing to pay well above 125%, and some are not meeting costs. Unfortunately, I think that's just, that's the way the cookie crumbles when we have to see collaboration and consensus, and we anticipate having this worked out hopefully next legislative session. So to answer your question, Representative Schmidt, they essentially will not be paying a fee.
So what are our options?
Well, the committee could vote to approve the rule or the conditional approval request.
Based on the note to Jelcar, it doesn't appear that there is a basis for objection.
Go ahead, Carol.
How many out-of-state pharmacies do you license?
Representative, I'm sorry, I don't know the number off the top of my head. I will say that the renewal schedule is not until December. So while we may receive new applications, I don't anticipate it to be many.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion by McGuire, second by Gray. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Board of Nursing.
Is an emergency rule from the Board of Nursing dealing with the renewal and reinstatement requirements for nursing licenses. Under Executive Order 2021-12, adopted, issued by the governor last November, licensed healthcare professional boards are supposed to are directed to identify all tools available to streamline licensing, increase eligibility, and implement other strategies that will assist the healthcare system in the coming months. Ms. Courtney can certainly correct me, but I think there have been about 22,000 licenses issued since last year to help alleviate this problem. The question I have here, well, let me explain this issue first. Currently, all applicants for renewal or for reinstatement have to show that they've been active in practice. If they have not been active in practice, then they have to go through a program through OPLC. The emergency rule would limit the active in practice requirements to only those who've not held a license for at least 5 years. The board thinks this will expedite reinstatement of nursing professionals. My question is there a real emergency here since the pandemic seems to be waning, at least temporarily, and 22,000 licenses have been issued? So I'm not sure whether this falls under the need for an emergency or just a regular rule.
Good morning again. For the record, Lindsay Courtney, Executive Director, Office of Professional Licensure and Certification. I'm here today representing the Board of Nursing with respect to its emergency filing. I think that there are probably two different issues here. I think there's certainly the pandemic is winding down, but I think that we are in a real emergency as it relates to healthcare workforce. That's separate and distinct from the pandemic. And we were seeing that obviously prior to COVID. I think it was exacerbated due to COVID, but we are still seeing a significant issue with respect to workforce. I think it's due to a number of factors, obviously people getting burned out during COVID, but obviously our aging population in New Hampshire, and it's clear that we do not have a significant or sufficient number of healthcare workforce individuals in order to meet our needs. So I think with that said, the Board of Nursing decided to, pursuant to the governor's executive order, utilize the tools available in its toolkit. We, I believe, were the only state that required this active in practice requirement for those renewing. This was a significant barrier and has been a significant barrier, particularly for individuals who may leave the workforce for a couple of years, let's say to raise a child or to care for a sick loved one. They would have to undergo a reentry program that was essentially non-existent. It was incredibly difficult for people to find a valid reentry program. So it essentially prevented people from reentering the workforce. And given the fact that the state was the only one to require this requirement, the Board of Nursing felt that it was not necessary, and given the workforce challenges we have, that it was an emergency, and they promulgated this emergency rule.
Questions from the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Courtney. So if there isn't some kind of formal training program, reentry program, this will, just for the trust of the public, the responsibility will fall on the employers. So hospitals, nursing homes, healthcare practices, are they gonna have competency I mean, it's kind of outside of your purview, but what's your knowledge of this? Are they gonna be taking on the competency and basically onboarding these folks?
Yeah, so this would only be limited to individuals who've been out of the workforce for 5 years or less. The board felt comfortable that within 5 years, you would be able to reenter the workforce. The employer could assess your competency skills as they're required to do anyways. You could receive continuing education, but they didn't feel that it was necessary to require the individual to take the NCLEX again, for example, and or go through a reentry program, which is pretty extensive. After the 5 years, they would have to do that in order to reenter the workforce.
Okay.
Representative McGuire.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to confirm that the continuing education requirements for license still apply.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Police standards and training.
This is 2021-17, and there is an amended conditional approval request, which has eliminated all staff comments.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by McGuire, second by Hatch. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? and the Department of Health and Human Services.
This is another emergency rule. We just received it on Wednesday. The department is adopting the emergency rule on involuntary emergency admissions to designated receiving facilities or to the New Hampshire hospital. On May of last year, May 13th last year, the governor issued Executive Order 2021-9. It directed, because of mental health crisis in the state, it directed DHHS to create emergency rules to immediately increase access to services in order to address the mental health crisis. It includes requirements for policies and standards by which a hospital must treat patients with mental health concerns. These rules are specific to emergency admissions, involuntary admissions. They're about 10 pages long, and there's about 10 pages of forms. I note that it's been 10 months since the order came out from the governor, but given this topic of these rules, it's a legal nightmare, and I can understand where it would take a long time to do this. I did have a concern about whether there should be more specific statute regarding emergency admission, but Christina has pointed out that there is indeed a statute regarding this. So I have no other concerns.
Representative McGuire.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to confirm that the department is starting into regular rulemaking, so these emergency rules don't expire on us.
Good morning, Allison Zinno, Administrator of the Administrative Rules Unit for the Department of Health and Human Services. Yes, we've actually, as of yesterday, we have started working on an initial proposal draft to ensure nothing expires for this rule.
Questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Allison whether you anticipate having your regular rules ready in time. You say you just started them.
Yes, we anticipate, we've already been working with stakeholders. We anticipate, we've started our initial proposal draft internally. So yes, we 100% plan on having these ready in time before the expiration of
Thank
the
you.
rule in September.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Thank you. Mike, anything else?
We have no other business.
Seeing as we have no other business, this meeting is,
Continued meeting.
the continued meeting is canceled, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Anybody want to lift for your dive button on the background that looks like the Ukrainian flag? Whatever. I got two left for today.
Hey there. Very well. Suzanne, did you come down just for this?
Yeah.
You did too.
Yeah.
I have my, do a lot of remote work for the Trauma Society.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Park myself in a place there's Wi-Fi. I just drive back home. Just gonna
There's always something to do, so that's, and also desecrating a flag and things
Right,
like that, yeah.
what would we think if somebody took, so, and then the look for your die could be misinterpreted, and that's why I wanted to put the whole quote on there. And